Hello, folks. How are you doing? I hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful day. If you like the channel, maybe subscribe. Maybe do me that solid if you've not been subscribed before. It really does help the channel, and it gives me nice, warm feelings inside whenever I see the number tick up. It's always a nice feeling. We have 3 hobby nightmares today. I have just started. I'm not sure if you can hear it in my voice, but I've just started. Have any of you guys gone through this? You go through like cycles of just being out of the hobby. Do you know what I mean? And then something just pulls you back in. I did a episode over the weekend, a bonus episode, if you will, on talking about White Dwarf and that I've been reading White Dwarf. I've now signed up to it because I just think it's fun. And the one this week is about. I'm really excited for November's. November's is literally the history of Warhammer from start to finish, which is going to be really cool to read about. But White Dwarf has gotten me back into building and painting again. I honestly, this year, I've been so busy and, things have been going hell for leather all the time that I've not really had time to sit back and do any hobbying. But this weekend, I found some time, I put some models together, and you know what? I love this hobby so much, man. Like, it really does. It soothes my mind. It really does soothe my mind of anything else that's going on in life. I can sit down, I can paint my models, I can put them together, I can think about my little soldiers, and life is good, And you need to chase that feeling, dude. And I think I want to make Hobby Nightmares kind of like that, right? It's chasing that feeling of, oh my god, yes, get to paint my models tonight. Anyway, let's jump into some Hobby Nightmares, shall we? With our first one of the day. And do you want me to say you by another name? Oh, it's Eric. How's it going, dude? He says, "Hi, North. I thought I would write in on a quiet Monday night when my models are drying after a day of washes and shading. Good lad. Good lad. Good work. I've loved your sessions these past few months, but not had time to write in again due to work and family commitments. I'll take this opportunity to thank you for reading out my last email concerning the chase through Chester after a shoplifter. Stop thief." Yeah, I remember that. That's legendary. Legendary. Yeah, basically Games Workshop manager chasing a shoplifter through Chester, just pointing at him constantly. Stop thief. Yeah. I will admit it got a bit Monty Python, but yeah, I kind of enjoyed it. And I think you might like some short stories about when the general public came into the Games Workshop universe. Okay. Please continue to call me Eric. I've been away from Games Workshop for so long, I doubt anybody will remember me now. My background, to keep it short, starts in the late 1980s when I visited the Glasgow store one summer and was absolutely hooked. I helped out when I had spare time and made friends with Tom and Paul, my gaming buddies. Tom was the same age as me, and Paul was just leaving school. Today, they are both grandfathers. Wow. And we still game and collect most armies in this hobby, including Games Workshop games at times. I got a part-time job in the Glasgow store, then a full-time position. After a few years, I moved to Nottingham to work in mail order and helped out in some other departments before returning to retail and working in numerous shops in England, Scotland and Ireland. I was there through the golden age of Games Workshop, expanding from a few shops to an international company, and saw many changes in my time. But all this is secondary to the reason I really loved my job. I loved working with customers. Awesome, man. This sounds like a real odyssey, right? This sounds like a really cool career. Really cool odyssey to go on. Love it. However, these short stories are about the most terrifying customers I experienced. The normies. One day, it was a hot summer Saturday, and the Glasgow shop was jumping. Gamers are gaming, painters are painting, and hobbyists, well, you get the picture. Enter a young man of around 6 or 7 years, who walks up to the busy part-timer and asks a question. The part-timer looked at him quizzically and pointed to the nearest full-timer. Same question was asked, and again quizzical looks, and after a short talk, a look of desperation too crossed his face. He brought the young man up to me and asked if I could help him. "Certainly, mate. How can I help?" I asked. "Can I buy a partridge, please?" he replied. Silence. What's it for?" I said, hoping to get an idea of the army it might be in. "My brother's birthday," he said, with a big smile on his face. Silence. Then a change of tactic. Okay, what army does he play, do you know? His own army. It's great. Silence. It took many questions. What does his model look like? Well, they've got big teeth. Okay. What colour are they? Blue or red? Maybe black too. Silence. Now, if he said green, you were sorted, right? You know, the orcs are over there. I had a brainwave. Showed the young lad the codexes and army books. No joy there, though, as nothing looked right to him. The next 20 minutes passed very slowly. I had resigned myself to going through each and every blister pack, patiently determined to find the partridge in question, be it a griffin, elven eagle, or tyrannid-winged beastie. That's when it dawned on me, and taking him over to a section, I handed him a blister pack and found the holy grail of this young man's quest. It's called a patriarch, a leader for gene stealers. Does your big brother play Space Hulk or Tyranids? I asked. Yeah, but he doesn't have a partridge. I watched the young man walk up to the till, prize and birthday money gripped in his hand, and with a big smile and cheery wave, walked out of the shop, never to return. God bless him. God bless him. The rest of the staff were laughing as I walked back into the back for a well-deserved coffee. Mate, like, well done you for going above and beyond for this young man. You know what I mean? It's the little things. It really is little things. A lot of staffers would have just said, oh, I don't know. Have a look around. Do you know what I mean? The fact that you took the time and you sat down and went, well, you know, let's see if we can find this thing for you, young man. You know, good for you. Yeah, I love it. Brilliant. A few months later, mate, Eric, can you, if you've got any more, mate, please send them in, because I love reading these. These are like, you know, retail experiences coming back at me now. A few months later, Games Workshop stores used to have petty cash put aside for printed flyers and posters, advertising the weekly games, day and night times, special days like grand reopening or new releases, and of course, Games Day. As Glasgow was one of the top 5 stores in the company, we advertised coach tickets as soon as possible to get to Games Day, letting people know there were only a few seats left after a few days of staff informing gamers. The 2 big posters in the window were updated daily, and therein lay the next occasion of normie interaction. Dude, I remember when Games Workshop did this. You know, like, it's Warhammer Fest now, but it used to be called Games Day, right? And it was, I think it was held in Birmingham most of the time, or Nottingham. But, like, every Games Workshop store that I knew of had a, like they would hire a coach, right? On company expenses, they would hire a coach, and you'd book your place on that coach with your models, and you'd go down and play at Games Day. Or you'd go down with no models and just because you wanted to go to Games Day and be around the lads, you know, be around other Warhammer people. Usually it was Birmingham. I think they did a few in Nottingham. Correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, every Games Workshop of size used to do this. The Liverpool one used to do it too. They used to do coach trips down to Games Day, and I never went because I was too young. And it stopped when I was old enough. It stopped, unfortunately. But this is the company as it used to be. You know, when people say the golden age of Games Workshop, this is kind of what they're talking about. This kind of stuff. This is the kind of Games Workshop where on a Thursday night they would do Blood Bowl games upstairs away from the general public because there was a lot of swearing involved with playing Blood Bowl, and they would allow you to drink beer. You know, that kind of thing. Yeah, it's that kind of an age. Anyway. 2 little old ladies walked in and, seeing me standing near the till, marched up to me, all handbags and blue rinse. Hello, anything you might be looking for? Asks our hero with some trepidation, our staff member. Yes, young man. 2 tickets to London, please. I was caught off guard for a few seconds before answering, sorry, we sell games and such like. We are not really travel agents or a coach company. But you have posters selling us bus tickets in the window. 2 tickets to London, please. I took a few moments to tell them that it was a special coach that took customers to an event in Birmingham. We didn't run coaches to anywhere else, even London. They whispered to each other, then turned to me with the immortal words, oh, well, 2 return tickets to Birmingham then, please. Well, what do you do now? Well, what do you do now? You gotta sell them the tickets, right? I mean, you can't not. It took a while to explain further. All while do you know what I would have I would definitely have sold them the tickets. I'm a terrible person. I would have sold them these tickets, absolutely. Like, there you go. Have fun. Just imagine them sitting next to like all these nerds on the bus. So which army do you guys play? What? You know. I wouldn't have done that, obviously, but it's still, yeah, I would have been very tempted. It took a while to explain further. All the while, the two ladies glared at me, mumbling about misleading the public about coach tickets and such like. Then they stormed out of the store with umbrellas and glares, causing a party of gamers ahead of them. I really needed that coffee. They never returned, though. That Christmas, for a few years in the 90s, every shop would periodically receive a cassette to play in the store, and usually staff would fight over them, wanting to play their favourite songs as loud as possible. Think of an early version of Now That's What I Call Music before they started appearing. Before long, the cassette would start to grind, and staff would look ahead to the next tape, or play the other older tapes just for a bit of change. Dude, I did this with CDs. I went to, I bought, with petty cash, compilation CDs of metal, metal and new metal and things like that. You know, things that weren't really heavy. Like, so it'd be like heavy metal, so you got your Disturbed, things like that. And then you'd have your other bands that are lighter than that. You know, your Incubuses, stuff like that. So it's not too heavy for... Because I don't want a mother coming in and listening to, like Cannibal Corpse or something. She's like... Not that I'm into those, but you know what I'm saying. Like, a bit too heavy music, and you scare off the people who actually want to buy stuff. There'll be like 2% of people in the store who actually love that music and like, oh, this Games Workshop, great, and everyone else is like, what the hell is this? So yeah, you got to keep it milk toast if you can, and even then you've got to be quite careful that the swearing isn't in the songs, because if you get a complaint, yeah, it does come back on you. Back in the day though, they didn't really give a shit. They just got on with it, and it was still just rock music. It wasn't really. They still had brains. Do you know what I mean? Like, they wouldn't play, like, extreme, Nordic, Icelandic death metal, It would be, like, Judas Priest or Metallica or, it'd be again, milk toast. It'd be your usual fare, but still good songs. We had just received a Christmas cassette tape, and everybody was happy to play it loud, singing along to classic Christmas songs. The shop was buzzing. Games were being played on several tables, and all the staff were dealing with the December customers in for ideas or purchases for the upcoming seasonal holiday. Suddenly, about 10 yobbos, aged between 12 and 15, rushed in, screaming and hollering, and scattered through the shop, frantically scanning the shelves. A few customers and gamers screamed, backing away from the youths, and all the staff froze in place. After a few minutes, the youths slowed down, quietly looking at the puzzled staff and gamers, and asked a few questions from the gamers standing closest to them. The largest and oldest approached me. Mister, where's all the music tapes? What? All the music tapes and records. We heard the music. Where's the stuff? Looking around, I saw some of the invading youths rolling dice or pointing to the painting cabinet in admiration. We don't sell music. It's a tape from head office to play over Christmas. Oh, okay. Well, sorry, big man. We'll just head down to HMV and nick some stuff from there. HMV, for those of you who don't know, is like a record store, or used to be in the UK. Quite rare now. I'm sure some of the pack were dragging their heels, looking back longingly as they crowded out in embarrassment. Strangely, everybody went back to gaming or perusing the shelves, the last 10 minutes already forgotten. I made coffee for all the staff and we stood around, and thought of that mob running riot in HMV, hoping they didn't come back. I've got loads more stories I can recall, but I thought these might be appreciated by everybody, at least raising a bit of a smile. Thanks for your insightful and original sessions. While I don't often visit Games Workshop stores now, it's good to hear that things of importance haven't changed much in the stores since I left many years ago. Perhaps next time dude, they have. Like, they really have. Like, they don't do games anymore. Walking into a Games Workshop now is like walking into an Apple store. You know, or a store that sells you a mobile phone, something like that. I might talk about darker events that may take the rosy look off the times back then. Please do, man. Like, I love the way you write your hobby nightmares, so please do. Cheers and all the best to you and your family and the listeners, Eric. Well, please keep sending them in, dude, because these are really fun to listen through and to read. So, yeah, please do. I'd love to read them out. All right. Next, we have Wayne. How's it going, dude? Wayne. And he says, "Hi. Hope you're well. This isn't really a hobby nightmare, just a request for help from a very frustrated hobbyist. I've been watching your content off and on for a while. I was just watching your fear of missing out video when you said you loved Games Workshop, and that resonated with me, as I feel the same, and I'm tired of all the other content creators bashing them all the time. They are a huge part of my life, and that being ever since I was young. I want them to succeed. They've created something unique, and there's nothing else like it. I'm from the UK, and honestly, I'm proud of them." Dude, yeah, I'm with you. The amount of people that have said, like, you know, oh, you're a shill, you're this, you're that. Dude, I like Warhammer. Like, shut up. That's it. Yeah, I like Warhammer, dude. Like, and Games Workshop have been a massive part of my life since I was 11 years old. So, you know, like, it's like having a brother who you love dearly, and sometimes he goes off the rails. Sometimes he'll sleep with the wrong woman, or he'll, you know, take the wrong drug, or he'll get into a fight, or, you know, he'll bring the family name into disrepute. But by God, was he the, like, imagine having a brother who in your most desperate times was there for you and helped you out, do you know what I mean? And, you know, did a bit for you. And then every now and again, he does something that's really stupid. And you think, dude, why did you do that? You're an idiot. You know, stop doing that. Would you just stop loving him? No, of course you wouldn't, right? You wouldn't even do that with a friend. You know? If a friend had been loyal to you and helped you out in really difficult times in your life with what they're bringing into your life, but then they do certain times they act out and they do stupid things, you wouldn't just ostracize them. You'd be like, dude, sort your shit out. You know what I mean? Same with Games Workshop. Same, right? Just because I want them to succeed, just because I like Warhammer, doesn't mean I agree with everything. Look at my channel, dude. You know, this is how you can't win on the internet. Look at my channel. Look at the sheer amount of bashing I've given them over the years, and I still get called a shill. I would say, like, 1 in 5 of my videos praises or is either neutral or happy for Games Workshop. The other 4 are like, dude, why are you doing this? Stop. So yeah, I don't get it. I don't get the shill comments or anything like that. It's best just to ignore folks on the internet, to be honest with you. If I'm going to be honest, take a leap out of like Valrak's book or Pancreas's book or Amber King or something like that. You know, they just don't give a shit. Like Voldemort doesn't give a shit what you have to say. You know, that's the way to do it. And that's the way I would do it with you, Wayne, as well. I'd say the same thing. However, right now, I feel badly let down by them, and I'm a bit stuck. Okay, let's explore. I have been in the Warhammer hobby for over 30 years, and recently had a really disappointing experience with Horus Heresy Saturnine. I have now been through 6 different copies of the Saturnine sprues, including replacements from Games Workshop, and every single one had the same kind of surface damage. The rivets and chest details are scuffed, and there are rough patches on several components. I have even seen the same issues on boxed kits in the store. Wait. So you have... Wait. How bad is this damage? Because if they've given you like 5 Saturnine boxes, you have nothing to complain about. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you... Depending on the damage. Like, if this damage makes the models unusable, or like, you know, really terrible to look at, then my heart goes out to you, absolutely, with you on that one. You know. But if, like, if it's easy to hide, or you can just mask it as battle damage, and they've sent you, like, 3 or 4 Saturnine boxes to try and solve the problem for you, I'm failing to see this. I can't really feel much sympathy, you know. The rivets and chest details are scuffed. Okay. I want pictures. I want pictures because at the end of the day, if they've sent you like 4 or 5, Saturn 9 is an expensive box, my friend. If they've sent you like 3 or 4 of these boxes, try and make up for it. You got to cut them some slack. You've got, because they've just given you several armies worth of models. Anyway, Games Workshop support team were excellent and genuinely tried to help. Well, good. In the past, they have always been amazing and quick to resolve any issue, which is why I'm honestly stunned by how the situation unfolded. Even after several replacement kits, none were clean, and I eventually had to take a refund. Wait till they get... Whoa. So they gave you all of these models and then gave you your money back? What? That's amazing. Like, they've given you several boxes of Saturn 9 and then just given you your money back. Dude, I don't know of any other company who would do that shit. Is that true? Did that actually happen? Like, so you complain about Saturn 9 being scuffed and, you know, the damaged in some way, right? It's been a bad print off or whatever, right? And then they've just given you another Saturn 9 box. Normally, somebody would stop there going, do you know what? Even if this second one is a bit scuffed, I've now got 2 Saturn 9 boxes. What are you going to do? I've doubled my money. Hooray, right? Like, but they've given you several, and then they gave you your money back. Wow. What I wanted was simply the product in the condition advertised. Okay, yeah, I get that. But, do you know what I mean? There is a but here, isn't there? They've really gone above and beyond to try and make you happy here. They obviously value your custom, because they'll have you on file. Like, you know, they have all interactions on file. They'll know who you are, you know. So, I can't really see what more you wanted them to do, aside from like go to the print, go to the not the printer, but you know the mold itself, and you know do one bespoke just for you to make sure, you know what I mean. Which they can't really do. They've thrown models at you and then given you your money back. I mean, I take this as a win, man. This is a huge win. Like if new Grey Knights came out and a few and the chest pieces and rivets were scuffed, I'd be like, do you know what, battle damage? I'd complain, and if they gave me several more kits and then my money back, I'd be like, dude, where are your balls? Let me stroke them. Like, what, do you want something for this? Like, this is great. Like, I don't know, man. I don't know. What makes this more confusing is that I've had no such issues with Age of Darkness or any of the other Heresy kits. It just seems to have started with Saturn 9, and now I'm seeing similar marks on the new Mark II Assault Marines too. It feels like something has changed around that time in production or packaging. I'm sharing this because I know other hobbyists are starting to see the same thing and it deserves more visibility. It's a real shame because the designs are beautiful and I still love the hobby, but the quality is not where it used to be. Regards, Wayne. Well, okay, that I will get behind you on. Absolutely, that I will absolutely get behind you on. If the quality of models is going down, that needs looking at. With you on that one, absolutely. But on the flip side, they've gone way above and beyond with you. Like, my feedback to you, Wayne, is in 2 parts. Number 1, you're right. Quality control should be better. And the types of models you get should be better. Right? Number 1. But on the flip side of that, Games Workshop are bent over backwards to try and make you happy. And, you know, they've made you a very wealthy man when it comes to Saturn 9. Like, you could sell those on, man. There'll be other people out there who will give you 75% of the price for damaged goods, and they'll be happy to pay it, right? You know, they've basically given you like several full armies and your money back. I don't know how much more you can ask of them, to be honest with you. I think we need to cut Games Workshop some slack here, but also the general argument, yes, with you. The general argument, yeah. absolutely with you. But you know how they treated you? No, no. I think they treated you like royalty there, man. They and that is I don't know of another company who would go 10% of that. They'd laugh at you and say, "We got your money." You know, they wouldn't say that to you, but that's how they'd be feeling. Well, we got his money, fuck him. You know what I mean? So, you know, they gave you the product again and again and again and again. And then when you finally had enough, they said, listen, just so we don't lose you as a customer, here's your money back. Yeah. Come on, man. Anyway. Our next Hobby Nightmare is from James. He says, hello, North. You can call me James. Greetings from the US. I've really enjoyed your channel and all of your rants and Hobby Nightmares. I started listening to you around March of 2024. I drive around 25 minutes to work every day, and they've always entertained me endlessly before having to clock in and get to managing the restaurant I work at. Thank you for all you do to entertain us fans on the daily. Feel free to take a sip of tea before we jump right in. Okay, thank you. Before I get to my Warhammer 40k Hobby Nightmare, I'd love to give you some backstory on my journey in the hobby and how everything led up to my first tournament experience, which is where things got a little difficult. The names in this story have also been changed for privacy. I had been orbiting around Warhammer 40k for quite some time since high school. I had a friend, Taylor, who introduced me to 40k in junior year of high school up in Pennsylvania. He shared some of the lore and game trailers with me on YouTube. I thought the universe was incredibly interesting, and I had never been exposed to a tabletop game of this nature beyond your typical family board games like Monopoly or Game of Life. I also enjoyed building the occasional model kit or Lego set for a bit of fun. I felt it was a good fit, so why not give it a try? He asked what faction I wanted to play, and I of course chose Space Marines. It seemed like a good jumping off point, since they seemed to be the main characters that the lore followed closely. He said he would get me some for my first models, and so I could build them and try the game out. I thought this was incredibly awesome of him. We went over to our local game store in the town square and dueled the store owner in Yu-Gi-Oh! In an effort to win my first codex, along with a box of Terminators and a box of Tactical Marines. The owner must have been a really good sport for allowing that, but anyway. Yeah, that's not going to be a Games Workshop store, that'll be a normal hobby store. Needless to say, he ended up winning. He came over later with the Codex, Marines and Terminators. I was so surprised and thankful that he did this for me. He also gave me a tackle box to keep them in, clippers and an X-Acto knife for detailing. Wow. Like, speaking of generous, man. Yeah. I went to get some glue and got to building. Later in the week, we both got together once I had completed my Marines, and he walked me through a small introductory game where he brought a few small units of his main army, the Tyranids. There were lots of rules to remember and lots of dice rolling. At the time, with my limited exposure to tabletop wargames, I found it so difficult to wrap my head around the rules. They just weren't sinking in. I thought it was too complex for me, and that the fun would be overshadowed by me constantly struggling to remember the rules. Not only that, I realised how much money I would have to spend on the hobby. I was a poor high school student who worked summer jobs and was focused more on video gaming than anything in the tabletop realm. I broke the news to him that I probably wouldn't be able to get deeper into the hobby. I thanked him so much for the models and the codex. Since Tyler was more of a Tyranids fan, he let me hold on to the models and codex so that in case I changed my mind down the road, I would have them. That moment would not come for a long time. Wow, dude. Like, Alright. Fast forward 13 years. I had a career in the film industry that took a nosedive because of the film strike. My friend, who we shall call Ron, managed to get me on some sort of reshoots for a week after the strike lifted. Film work was sparse for everybody at that time, and I just took what I could get. I was working on set one day with some of my friends, including Ron, when I overheard him and another one of my friends, Brian, talking about a Warhammer 40k crusade they had going on, which Ron was in charge of running. Ron asked if I'd ever played any 40k before. I said I did, but the rules were pretty overwhelming for me at the time, and I hadn't played since high school. He offered to help coach me, and also explained what a crusade was, since I hadn't heard of it before. I absolutely loved the idea that 40k could be played in a more narrative fashion, where things weren't as competitive. I had gotten into D&D during COVID, so narrative gameplay I knew was something that I loved, and if I could absorb the rules of D&D as well as the other new board games I had now played over the years prior, I figured learning Warhammer would be much easier now. I was willing to give it another go. Ron let me read the entire story synopsis of the Crusade thus far. It was amazing and had me totally engaged the entire time. This is how I would enter the hobby, a character in a grand narrative devised and orchestrated by a good friend. It didn't get any better than that, or so I thought. In January 2024, I officially entered the hobby in my friend Ron's Crusade. I entered about halfway through the campaign and made an unlikely choice for my first full army, despite still holding on to Taylor's Space Marines he had won all those years ago. Since Space Marine chapters were already prominent in the campaign, I wanted to add a different Imperium flavour to the campaign, and I chose the Sisters of Battle. My friend Brian had that army and was willing to let me buy it off of him. He had Necrons, which he was playing with in the campaign, that was now his main army. I now had a full force of Sisters to play around with. Sounds wrong. learn from and add on to. Ron was an amazing coach, as well as my other new friends in the Crusade group. You could say I had struck hobby gold, with how welcoming this group was, and every single one of them was such a great sport about everything. They were in the hobby for the absolute fun of it all, and now I was along for the ride with them. It was truly inspiring. Between all of us, we had just about every army covered save for a few, and Ron had his own studio that we could all game in. Sounds ideal. 2024 was such a hard year for me because of film work drying up post-strike for me and my film friends. I ended up having to hard pivot into a new career in restaurants and work my way up from the bottom over the whole year just to survive. Warhammer with my friends helped relieve the stress of it all and stay afloat emotionally as best as I could. I stayed afloat financially and worked as much as I could at the restaurant, and eventually became a hospitality manager towards the end of the year, which got me more back on my feet. It was a year-long uphill battle that did not come without its toll on me, but things felt much better at the moment. If it wasn't for Warhammer and hobbying helping me to de-stress, I probably would have hit rock bottom. To cap it all off, I reconnected with Taylor on Facebook after falling out of contact when I moved away for college. I showed him what I was up to. I apologised that I hadn't truly opened myself up to the hobby much sooner. He understood, and we started nerding out together about 40k all over again. Well, here is your reminder, guys. Right? Get in contact with that mate that you've not spoken to in a long time. Your hobbyist friend. Get in contact. Say hello. Maybe reach out there. It's always good to do. Fast forward to this year, 2025. Here is where we get more into the tournament nightmare. I had played Sisters of Battle for a bit and completed my first Crusade campaign. I was now ready to take on my next army, the Blood Angels. I had purchased about 2,500 points from my friend in North Carolina in early 2024 for $200, who was just trying to get rid of them. It was an absolute steal, and I was eternally grateful. There they sat though for a year while I focused on my sisters for the first year of hobbying. Now, it was their time to finally shine. My official Space Marine chapter of choice would carry me into my first tournament experience with Ron and my friends from the Crusade group. My OG Marines from Taylor would also finally get their colours in sumptuous red and shining gold-plated armour to stand out from the crowd of my firstborns. The 5-man team tournament at ATC in Chattanooga, Tennessee would be my first tournament. We all planned to attend and would prepare ourselves in the months leading up for it. Some of my friends in the group were more familiar with tournament play, so they helped me and another tournament first-timer in the group learn terrain rules for the different layouts and also get some practice in with our armies before the tournament in July. They weren't trying to win the whole tournament by any means, but they wanted us to get decent enough to where we could go, just have fun and meet new people. Most importantly, they were training us to play a 2,000 point game in 3 hours or under. It was so daunting trying to keep up and memorise my list so I wouldn't have to look up their stats as much. As such, as I tried to learn fast, there were still things that slipped through the cracks because of my nerves whilst playing this way. Hell, I even forgot my own rules sometimes in normal games. I've just never been an overly competitive player, but having my first tournament experience I thought would be fun nonetheless, and going on a trip with friends would be the icing on the cake. During all of my practice matches, I kept on getting beaten to a pulp by my friends. Understandably so, because they were trying to practice going all out and asked me if it was cool. I was fine with it because I wanted them to do well, and learning under pressure is sometimes best for me. I learned some tips and tricks that I could think out during the tournament play, and hopefully at least I could have some fun matches. Scheduling practice matches was also rough because of varying schedules, but that's a story for another time. Okay. On top of the repeated losses and the hassle of scheduling practice matches, which was dwindling my confidence somewhat, during the 2 months prior to the tournament, I got into a fender bender where someone rear-ended me and totaled my car, which was very costly. Losing my car and the cost that came with it had me in a deep depression for a month and a half, and my insurance was dragging their feet in handling things. I still needed to finish painting some of my Blood Angels for the tournament, but I just couldn't bring myself to sit down and paint while feeling this way. On my days off, after working long days at the restaurant, all I could think about doing was putting on random movies and shutting my brain off before eventually going to bed. Eventually, I finally got a settlement to get a new car. I snagged a new car with the settlement money, and things started looking up again for me emotionally. But the tournament was nearly here, and I still had painting to do. Fast forward a few more days, and it was finally tournament time. My friends and I checked ourselves into our Airbnb the night before, and got to finishing up some last-minute painting and basing for our armies. My friends were my lifesavers because I had not based any of my army at all, since I had been so busy with work in the few days beforehand, and we formed an assembly line to get them all done. We got our army's tournament ready by late night and set off the next day for the ATC. I will admit, seeing the sheer size of the tournament was intimidating to me, and I started to get a bit nervous, but I did my best to remain level-headed. I felt my skills with playing at a faster pace had vastly improved, so at least I knew I would not dox my team on points for playing too slowly. I then learned how under-optimised my list was to go against Imperial Knights, which was the current meta. I was more geared towards killing infantry in melee. If I got matched with a Knights player, I knew I would get stomped. If it wasn't for how costly my car situation was, I definitely would have picked up more vehicles, but unfortunately I had to make do with what I had, a Razorback and a Rhino. Oh well, here goes nothing, I thought. Before long, we were matched up with our first opponents. Whatever happened, we were hoping we would get knocked down into a lower bracket so that we would have a more casual tournament games over sweaty ones. Before we got started, the team captain of the opposing team then pointed out a complete oversight on myself and my team captain's part. I had planned to have my death company embarked in a Rhino. The problem with that? They were not Tacticus units. My friends and I largely played casual games where even my death company was allowed to go into a Rhino. This then carried over into my practice matches without anybody thinking anything of it, and now we're at the tournament and this was not legal. My death company now had to be on foot, and I was completely out of transport for the duration of the tournament. This greatly hampered my ability now to get my death company right into the face of the enemy quickly. Okay, so why didn't you put something else in the Rhino then? I know it's not the same, but at least they've now got the protection of being inside the Rhino. Do you know what I mean? Something else here, I don't know. I was extremely bummed out about this, but rolled with the punches and would now remember not to overlook this the next time I was at a tournament. My friend Ron apologised for the oversight and wanted to attempt to match me up with armies he knew I would do well against, despite the drawback. My first opponent was a Leagues of Votann player, and I had played against Votann only once before, so I was hoping things would go decently. At least I had my Death Company Marines with jump packs attached to Astrath to hopefully deep strike in and get a good charge off, plus my Razorback, Hunter Killer Rocket and Devastation Squad could hopefully pop some vehicles. Not. I failed my charge even with rerolls for my Death Company with jump packs, and eventually they got pummeled. My on-foot Death Company got plinked away by the dwarves, who kept on moving with reactions and peppering my Marines with shotguns. The Death Company eventually killed them, but got finished off by fire from an enemy Votann vehicle. My Devastation Squad and Razorback couldn't hit the broadside of the Emperor's Imperial Palace at all. At least my Assault Intercessors and Blood Angels captain were able to take down a land fortress on their own. I always love cool little kills like that. That was the only highlight of the match, as I lost at least by 30 points by the end of it. My opponent was a decent dude, but he would get so frustrated with me as if he had to repeat himself during the game. Yeah. Two sides to this. Number one, as far as I'm concerned, don't get upset with people who are, learning. If they've communicated to you that they're new at a tournament, don't get upset with them. If they need something repeating in a game, that's just how it is. New people are new people. How are you going to get more opponents if nobody joins the hobby, right? So, good communication is vital. Always, always, always make sure you tell people, listen, dude, I'm new to this hobby. I'm not the best at it. I may need something repeating for me. You're going to need to bear with me here. 9 times out of 10, your opponent will be like, yeah, no problem, dude. Right? And the 1 time in 10 you get that douchebag, don't play them again. Put them on the no play list. Simple, right? But on the flip side argument, you are at a tournament, so you would be expected to move at pace. You know what I mean? I know you found it difficult, and that's fine, but it depends how much you were asking. Like, if you're asking about every single rule, then I'd be like, dude, you're at a tournament. You know what I mean? Like, it was up to you to learn this stuff before you got here. And it depends as well. Are these normal rules you're missing out, or are they're your opponent's rules? If they're normal rules or your own rules, then yeah, after a while it gets a bit grating. But if I don't know your codex, fuck off. Do you know what I mean? Like, shut up. Anyway. Okay. Because we were in a noisy convention space, sometimes the surrounding cacophony of voices would throw my hearing off. There were also instances where I blanked on certain tournament-specific rules, and I asked him how those worked as a refresher. I was then met with more frustration. I shrugged it all off and chalked it up to my opponent's impatience, which was his problem alone. The game was over, and it was time to move on. Alright. Cool. For the sake of time, I won't go into too much detail about my other matches, but I lost every single one of them. I got torn to shreds by an Imperial Guard tank list, stomped into mulch by Imperial Knights, and sacrificed not once, but twice to Khorne by the World Eaters. The trend of failed charges and huge misses from my Razorback and Devastation squad continued as well. In one of the matches, I got paired up against one of my Crusade group friends, Chris, who was playing for another team. He played Death Guard. I was expected to play against me, since he hadn't gotten to play each other one-on-one for almost a year since I'd started playing 40k. I was happy to play against him as well. Things went alright for the first half with us being neck and neck in points. Then my dice went to sleep and I ended up losing. He also made a significant long charge against me that really turned things in his favour. We hugged it out after the match, and it was great to play against him despite the loss. Over time though, as the tournament dragged on with me suffering loss after loss, it did begin to weigh on me. With the repeated losses during the tournament, losing all of my practice matches prior to the tournament, the lingering negative emotions of the situation of my car getting totaled, as well as the depressing echoes of the uphill battle that was 2004, still being fresh in 2024, still being fresh in my mind, I felt like luck wasn't on my side at all for the longest time. I was becoming my own worst critic at a time, as time went on over the weekend. Being on my feet for 28 hours, playing a war game, feeling so exhausted, and with nothing to show for it, began to make me irritable. Dude, I think you need to give yourself a little bit of a break here. I think you need to really give yourself a pat on the back. I would not have survived this long. I would have blown my gasket. I would have absolutely lost my shit by this point. Halfway through what you went through, I would have been, foaming at the mouth with rage. This is rough. This is rough. This is like the roughest tournament experience we've ever had on the channel. Beyond cheating. Beyond, people cheating and things like that. This is a die-in-the-wall A1 hobby nightmare. No shenanigans, just sometimes life could be this way. And it sucks. Anyway. My irritability began to finally show outwardly in my final game of the tournament against the second World Eaters player. I tried to stay positive, but I just couldn't. I was tired after a long weekend. I was getting my ass kicked yet again, and all I wanted to do was concede. I talked myself out of doing it though. I wanted to lose fairly at least. I made foolish moves so he could just tear me to shreds, and the game could just end. He warned me about some abilities that would trigger if I did certain things, but I just didn't care. I shrugged and basically said, yeah, oh well. He was also bending terrain rules to his advantage, which was also BS, but I turned a blind eye to continue just speeding things up. The game ended in an hour and a half. We shook hands after the game, and he couldn't look me in the eye because I knew he could tell I was just done with the whole weekend. I then sat at a table near the concession stand while I waited for my team's final games to end so I could calm down and just relax for a bit. As I had mentioned earlier, I had never been a competitive player up until this point. I still don't consider myself one. I like to have fun during my games, and people also had a lot of fun playing me because of the fun energy I brought to the table. Dude, you're the best player there. You're the best player there. This is just my opinion. If people really enjoyed playing you, you're the best player there. Or one of the best players there. I'm serious. There's no higher compliment. Anybody can build a shit hot list. Anybody can do that. Anybody can win a game of 40k if the dice goes in their favour. Anybody can do that. Right? Not everybody can be a good opponent. It's a skill. It's hard. Especially, mate, you went through a hard dojo here. This is difficult to do. What you achieved here in making sure everybody but your last opponent had a good game, and even recognising that your last opponent didn't have a good game, what you achieved here was remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. Anyway, I disliked the irritability and exhaustion that came with tournament play after a while though, especially in a big tournament like this one. I didn't feel like myself, and I'm glad it did not manifest earlier than it did. Also, it didn't help that I truly didn't have a good list, and I learned that the hard way. Luckily, my friend Ron had gone up against another Blood Angels player and gifted me a printout that he got from the player of his Blood Angels tournament list, which ended up beating him. He knew I was having a hard time, and he said I should definitely consider this list, as it gives me a lot more speed and firepower. It was now something I could work towards if I wanted to go into another tournament and give competitive play another chance somewhere down the road. Those who know me know that one of my greatest strengths is finding the silver lining in any situation, so that I do not dwell on the negative side of things for too long. Dude, that's such a strength. You're the opposite of me. You're the opposite of me. I've tried for so long to be that guy. I've tried for so long to just find the silver lining in things. I'm the kind of guy, if things are going well in my life, I'll walk outside and I'm expecting the piano to drop on my head. Do you know what I mean? And I'm trying to find the good, you know. A lot of you will know I've had a recent health scare, which is ongoing, but I've had a lot of reassurance recently from the doctor, so it's fine. Yeah, I do have a surgery booked, and it'll be fine, right? It'll be fine. The specialist was really shit hot, and she let me know what time it was, and yeah, everything's gonna be fine. It's a routine surgery, but it's still surgery, it's still scary, right? But I'm trying to find the silver lining in it. Do you know why? Because this health scare is making me realise what's important and what fucking isn't. Right? My family is important. My missus is important. My daughter is important. My friends are important. Everything else can suck my fucking balls. Alright? Everything else can suck my balls. I don't care anymore, right? I have enough going on, you know? Last night I would have dwelled and I would have gone around in my own head, you know? And I decided to just put together a model. I put together a librarian for the Exiled Blades that I'd bought for myself over the weekend. A converted Stormcast Eternal who looks badass, right? I put him together in about 20 minutes, half an hour. and he looks awesome. And that bit the bug. Like I was like, oh my god, I love this, right? And I'm back in it again. I'm choosing to find this. I'm trying to find the silver lining, and my silver lining is one, everything's going to be fine health wise. I'm pretty sure, right? You know what I mean? And number two, even if it is a worst case scenario, they can deal with it. They've told me they can deal with it. It's not going to be an issue, right? And number three, on top of all of that, it's kind of made me realize what's important and what isn't. And you know what? When things started to look really positive, right? And it was like, oh, you might be out of the woods even today. Or you might be able to just like send you home, not even have to do a surgery, right? I was kind of dreading it. Doesn't that sound weird? I was dreading it. Do you know why? Because now I was like, oh, well now I don't have a framing device to be a better person. Do you know what I mean? Now my framing device of I must be a better person. I have to be a better person. I have to let things go. I have to, realize what's important in life. That lesson was taken away because it's like, okay, now you're normal again. What are you going to do? And I was scared of going back to how I was, being obsessive, being a self-hatred person, being that kind of a person, right? Because weirdly, the last week that I had, even with this news above my head, I was really happy. It's so strange, I was really happy. Like, I was happy with my family. I was happy with things going really well. And I had an amazing Halloween with my daughter and my missus. And I didn't want that to go away. I was like, oh, shit, I'm going to be all right now? Okay, well, I guess this is all up to me. And then it turns out that, this will go on for a while yet, and I need to have surgery and things like that. So, I still have that framing device. But that's the silver lining. It's a framing device now. I can actually use it and say, listen, I've got all these things going on, so everything else can just fuck off. Do you know what I'm saying? Everything else can just go away. So, I want to be a guy like you, James. I want to be able to find the silver lining in things. I want to be able to find... I've always thought people like that are, you're deluded. You need to stand up to the fact of what's there. But now I'm realizing, yeah, don't kid yourself, but also, like, don't torture yourself either. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, don't kid yourself, but like also don't torture yourself. It's one of them things. So that's what I'm taking out of life right now. I know I'm gonna be fine, but the fear of the surgery and the unpleasantness of the process is my framing device for ensuring that I'm a better man. When after this is done, I want to make sure that I'm a better man than when I started. I want to be able to look back on this period in 10 years' time and go, that was the moment. That was the moment when I turned shit around, when I really, I've never been a bad person. I don't truly believe I'm a bad person. I've never been a bad person, right? But I definitely have had shortcomings. Mainly they've been turned inwards against myself. Do you know what I mean? In 10 years' time, I want to look back at this period, autumn to winter 2025. I want to look back at this period and go, that was the moment where I turned my worldview around, and I've been much happier ever since. I'm choosing to take that lesson. I could sit here and obsess over the surgery. I could sit here and just obsess over things going on. And don't get me wrong, I will have moments where I'm like, oh my god, I've got surgery coming up. I will have moments, but it's about expecting those moments and giving yourself a fucking break. And yeah, you know what? It's fine to be scared. It's fine to do that. But also, you're going to be alright. And number two, take this and use it as fuel to build a better life. Because I want to be like you. I want to be like you. Anyway, sorry for the segue there. But this is also my therapy too. This is where I am. It's my therapy too. Okay. I was thankful in the end for this tournament experience. It gave me an idea of what to expect, broadened my experience against armies I didn't play much against, and more importantly, I got to hang out with my friends before, during and after the tournament activities. We were always keeping each other laughing and having a great time after the tournament day to de-stress from the day's matches. At the root of it all, it was a vacation for us, and I still treasure that time that we all got to spend together. Dude, you're a fucking Chad, man. You really are. Like that's excellent. My opponents were all generally great as well. I got to play against Chris, who I'd mentioned earlier about his Death Guard, who is one of the coolest and nicest Warhammer players in our Crusade group. Tom, who played the Imperial Guard, ended up becoming a Facebook friend and a wonderful conversation about wargaming in general and other nerdy topics. Even though I lost against the Imperial Knights, it was my highest scoring game, and my opponent was incredibly chill, on top of gifting me a custom dice with his team's name on it, since they were sponsored by Baron of Dice. I also brought down the Cerastus Knight Lancer, which was an exciting kill. The one World Eaters player was a young kid who was in the tournament with his dad. It was both of their first times as well. He was a great sport, and we both had a good game. He was excited for his win, and that was the game where I learned how nasty a Lord of Skulls could actually be. Lastly, a big upside to my tournament experience was how much detailed and painted terrain I got to leave with for $50. The man in charge of his section of terrain tables gave me a box and said, "Wherever you can fit in here, you can have for $50. He was cleaning house, and I was more than happy to oblige. I walked away with hundreds of dollars of awesome looking, table-ready terrain for a bargain price that now sits on its own shelf in my apartment. To conclude, the emotions that came with repetitive loss and unlucky situations in life were the nightmare of this tournament story, but the lesson to be learned here for me is that to prepare for better tournaments, learn from failure, and keep my head held high, because in the end, we're all here to have fun rolling some dice and to tell some great stories. Since then, I have pulled off some fun wins amongst friends and feel like I've gotten some serious groove back. Outside of that, I'm also the manager of a restaurant and now have a car. I fought hard for everything I have, and now I get to reap the fruits of my labour. There are so many positives that outweigh my negatives, and that's what's keeping me going. Here's hoping I can continue to improve greatly before I decide to enter my next tournament. Most likely a more local one, and use that new Blood Angels lists I'm currently getting models together for. Thanks so much for reading, North, and I hope you have an amazing day. Cheers, James. Thank you so much, mate. And guys, thank you so much for being there for me too. You know, like, things are fine now. You know, the last few weeks were not great, especially the first week. The second week, I had my diazepam. Hooray! I had my meds, and I had Halloween and lots of family stuff. So the second week was much better than the first week. Do you know what I mean? But that first week was rough because we had no answers. Right? We had a scan booked, but we had no answers. We didn't know what was going on. It could have been anything, you know. And that was the worst bit. Now we've got answers, and we've got a plan in place, a plan in motion. I'm much happier. Much happier. I don't need talking to. I don't need a prognosis. I don't need to. I don't need any armchair doctors. I've got a really good person looking after me, and I've got a really good family and really good friends. So yeah, I'll be fine. Everything's good. Before anybody goes, oh, no, I'm fine. All right, this isn't a big deal. It's a routine surgery, and even if it continues beyond the routine surgery, it's fixable. It's doable. Right? It's fine. So don't worry, everything's good, all right? I love you a long time. I will speak to you tomorrow, where we're going to be discussing your Space Marine chapters. That is tomorrow, that is Thursday, and then we'll do some more Hobby Nightmares on Friday. A little bit of an extra thing tonight, and on Friday, we will be doing a live stream. That is correct, a live stream. And it is N7 Day this week, which is Mass Effect Day, for those of you who don't know. So we will be doing a Mass Effect live stream of Mass Effect 1, 2, and 3, and all the DLC whacked on top of each other, because it's just fun to do, alright? I love you all a long time, have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll speak to you very, very, very soon, alright? Have a good one. Bye now.